Alright, so I just saw the Blackberry movie starring Glenn Howerton and Baruchel. This is a Canadian production. I'm not sure what scale of release it's getting in the US, but I'm assuming it'll probably attract at least a decent amount of attention considering how popular the Blackberry phones were in America. If you've seen the movie Air recently, I've got a review up for that one as well. It's actually quite similar in tone, although if you know the story of Blackberry and Research in Motion, then you know this is more of a rise and fall situation rather than a straightforward success story. I knew going in that this movie was going to be reasonably comedically angled, but I think the cast somewhat led me into thinking that it was going to be more of a comedy than it was. I don't mean that in a bad way at all though. It is quite funny and there's a lot of hilarious scenes, but it also did a better job as a serious movie than I was expecting. I was expecting the comedy to be the main focus of the movie just because it's Baruchel and Glenn Howerton, but the story was actually super compelling and well done. I basically knew the general outline of the Research in Motion story, and I can remember a lot of the news headlines that come up in the movie, like when Jim Balsillie was trying to buy an NHL hockey team and the disastrous launch of the Blackberry Storm. But it's really fun to see the full backstory on those and see what actually happened behind the scenes. The two leads both do a really good job in their roles. Howerton I thought fit particularly well into his character because his main traits are basically being incredibly arrogant and condescending, which he's definitely used to from his It's Always Sunny character. My favorite thing about this movie is how it illustrates the two drastically different approaches that Lazaridis and Balsillie took to the company. Lazaridis, the founder, was essentially all passion and hard work, which resulted in them having good concepts and huge potential before Balsillie came along, but never getting off the ground due to a lack of business and financial knowledge, whereas Balsillie was the cutthroat businessman who really barely even understood the company but was such a beast at making deals and pitching products that he could get them the money they needed even with hardly any technical knowledge. Throughout the movie, we basically see how Balsillie's influence at the company, while definitely needed at first, grows way out of control until he's basically the one making most of the big decisions. And by that point, his megalomania is completely out of control, and his wild ambitions basically lead the company from the very top of the corporate business world directly into the ground. The only real criticism I have towards this movie is that some of the time jumps don't feel particularly smooth and sometimes try to shift the context of the movie too sharply with minimal to no explanation, especially towards the end of the movie. Like obviously they're trying to tell a story that spans more than a decade here, so there's going to be time jumps, and for most of them it goes over totally fine. Just in the last act of the movie, some of the jumps involve characters changing somewhat drastically and I found it a little jarring. Specifically, there's a time jump where Lazaridis basically goes 0 to 100 from like the quiet genius type that he's been the whole movie to a very uptight businessman wearing expensive suits and shit. As the audience, you can pretty much infer the reasons for this, and there were definitely signs of him becoming somewhat disillusioned and more bitter before the time jump. It's just a very stark contrast, and it kind of feels like they were just rushing towards the end of the story. And I would have liked to see them spend just a little bit more time on that part instead of just being like, alright, fast forward a couple years and he's kind of an uptight dick now. Overall, pretty good movie though. Tells an interesting story in an entertaining way, and although it is comedic, it never feels like they aren't taking it seriously. If you're old enough to remember the days of Blackberry being the hottest phone in the world, you should definitely check it out. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.